I'm Georgia, an artist based in the UK. My practice is predominantly painting focused. I'm not formally trained. I didn't actually complete my fine art degree. And I left my painting practice behind, and it's only within the last 5 years that I picked it up again. So it's kind of been a really rewarding process, challenging, very challenging, but just a lesson in kind of trusting intuition, and also a sense of returning home and returning to my correct path, I suppose. I grew up a child of divorce between London and the countryside, and so this affected, I think, my sense of not quite knowing where my home was. And in my work, I think that's something I've come to understand that I'm building for myself. But the benefits to this was, of course, I had some time in the beautiful English Green and also some time in London. So this theme of returning home and kind of seeking maternal comfort is something I have come to understand that my work is about. It's self-holding. And I found a very beautiful quote by the artist Anna Mendieta recently, where she says her art is a return to the maternal source, which sort of resonated quite deeply, as a lot of my subject matter is flowers. And I was thinking, why is it flowers? Why is this something that I keep returning to? And I think, aside from the obvious fact that I've been working in the countryside for the last few years, and it's deeply I found it a deeply restorative and nurturing place. The idea of flowers, there's a strong lineage with the female line in my family, and my grandmother was a great lover of flowers, and so was my mother, and so was my stepmother, and they sort of symbolize kind of a hoped for healing maternal presence. I was, I think, quite a quiet child, and in the kind of tumultuous world around me, I think the art was a way of retreating, and also nurturing. So I look to my paintings as kind of each one as an element, as to part of this world that I'm building, a kind of a home that I'm building, a very feminine holding home, which gets complicated because sometimes it feels very hard to paint and I feel very challenged by it. But that's quite beautiful because I think that is where the opportunity for growth is. I am very deeply influenced by a lot of strong female artists. I mean, Georgia O'Keeffe being one of them, Marlene Dumas, and more recently Agnes Martin. I've been looking at her work, and she had this deep meditative quality, and they're deeply, deeply spiritual works. And I think that her kind of perception of beauty, or her ability to understand it so deeply and so innately is so fascinating. And although the works are very grid-like, they kind of contain this deep mysticism. And another female painter who does that is Hilma F. Klint, of course. And I'm kind of inspired by the lives of these women, Georgia and Agnes Martin in particular, who kind of lived these quite isolated lives. And that's something I feel like I also have a resonance with. I can be quite solitary, and I find that deeply fascinating, that they could have this ability to kind of look so inwardly and create such worlds, such rich worlds within, is really quite fascinating, because I think that my practice is always trying to dig closer to that, trying to unlock kind of more and more treasures the more and more I look inside, but using nature as a stimulus and kind of a bit of a gateway to that place, that nirvana within. And I hope that this is something I will move towards throughout my whole life, as my practice goes on over the years. And it's very exciting to think of what my work might be like when I'm 75 years old. That's a really sort of alluring thought to me. I think that's one that kind of drives a lot of my practice, because it's all within. And I think to meet that, it is also one of the biggest challenges of being an artist, because I just remember at the beginning of this year just feeling so kind of depleted, and I took this trip alone, and I was like, why the fuck can I not feel inspired, and all these amazing things that I had hoped for and longed to feel to kind of charge my work. And I realised it's because I was almost expecting too much of myself, and you can't force it. So I think moving with the highs and the lows of sometimes not being able to create and knowing when you can't, and kind of feeling into it when you can, there's a real art to that, and it's one I am still practicing. At the moment, I'm focusing on some paintings for a group show in London, which actually celebrates spring and the potential of new life. The title of the show is "In My Hand a Forest Lies Asleep," which is very beautiful, and I think really resonates with kind of the hopefulness that I put into my work. I do feel a sense that I'm young in this world, and I'm trying. My work is me trying to communicate, trying to build my world, and I feel at the very sort of beginnings of it, and I'm very excited for all the potential it holds. In terms of advice for my younger self, I would say it's all within you, and you have more time than you think, and do not let the illusion of other people's successes cloud your way. And also just a bit of bloody self-belief. I would not like to go back to that time. I was very lost. So but I think the journey of building that self-belief and building the confidence to put your work out, that's been actually really great. And in terms of unconventional mediums or techniques, I really am a painter, and it's something that I have been very steadfast about ever since I was very young, and particularly oil paints. And going back to my degree, I was in a fine arts degree, and I kind of just wanted to paint in oils, and other mediums sort of terrified me, which is something I would love to explore and move through and change. I have done some ceramics, which I have really loved, and the tactile kind of element of that is really cathartic and gorgeous. So let's see where I go. I am a big listener to podcasts, audiobooks and music as I work, and I do see it as one of the greatest privileges of what I do, because absorbing kind of knowledge and being able to explore all these different subjects as I paint, it's just so amazing. I mean, sometimes I do work in silence, but there's so many incredible podcasts out there, and it kind of there's anything to suit your mood, which is so brilliant. I mean, sometimes I'm feeling super spiritual and I'll go down that path for a few weeks, and then sometimes I'll get a non-fiction and I can learn all about the Aztecs, and that it's just so wonderful, and it's part of my job that I absolutely adore. I hope when people look at my work, they do feel a sense of joy. There's a lightness to everything, and I like the idea that when the petals and the forms are interacting, there's kind of this sense of fizzing kinetic energy, and I hope that there's a confidence and a triumphant quality to them. Ultimately, yeah, I would say it's joy that I would like to communicate. It's any interpretation is ultimately so powerful and so deeply meaningful to me. I hope that there's also an appreciation of the individual interpretation of my floral forms, and the nature by which they're sort of semi-abstracted, and I like the idea that someone could make assumptions or have sort of memories tied into flowers and their symbolism, and what my paintings then might trigger for them uniquely.